the Pat Mayo Experience, a mini edition of the Pat Mayo Experience. We got to talk NBA trade deadline because, you know, I am the foremost expert when it comes to the basketballs, but I do have Garion Thorne in studio with me. You know the basketball. So
do know some about the basketball.
More than me.
It's not a high bar to clear.
Well, you've cleared it.
There you go.
You're like a high jumper. There was no one else who could jump, and you won the Olympics.
It's an apt comparison. We were talking off camera about the Cavs, and did they get better? Not a high bar to clear. So yes.
But they did get better.
They got better.
So they basically overhauled the back half of the roster? Front end of the roster?
I mean,
the non-LeBron.
Yeah, the non-LeBron section of their roster. Depends on how you value Isaiah Thomas at this point.
Okay, so here's what the Cavs did. The Cavs got Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance from the Lakers for Isaiah Thomas, Channing Frye, and a first-round pick. Their first-round pick.
Yeah,
not the Nets.
That's an important distinction.
Not the Nets' first-round pick. They also got Rodney Hood and George Hill from the Jazz. Jay Crowder and Derrick Rose went to the Jazz, and the Kings are involved in this deal. They got Joe Johnson, Amon Shumpert, and a 2020 second-round pick.
And Joe Johnson's probably going to be bought out.
And join the Heat or join the Cavs?
I don't know if he'll join the Cavs. They're already well into the luxury tax.
Well, why not go a little bit more into the luxury tax?
It's true, you're pot committed. I think Boston's probably going to be the #1 spot for him.
So the other one was Dwayne Wade gets traded back to the Heat for a lightly protected second-round pick.
So
does that mean, like, please take Dwayne Wade?
It seems like there's two narratives of thought on this. One is, yeah, Dwayne Wade has very little trade value. He wasn't going to be traded to anywhere that wasn't Miami. Or if you're kind of the mind that LeBron truly does run the Cavaliers, it seemed like everyone he did not like ended up in not such a great situation, and he was at least nice enough to his longtime banana boat friend Dwayne Wade to send him back to Miami. Yeah, I mean, the Cavs are better. They had to get better. It was a wreck. It was a train wreck right now. I mean, they won last night in a single overtime game against Minnesota. It took a miracle shot at the end. LeBron had to go off, and I think his final stat line was something like 45, 12, and 12, which playoff LeBron can do.
You can't do that every night.
No.
In the
regular season, no. But I think that's kind of the thought process here is we know LeBron can be playoff LeBron in the playoffs. So let's at least give him a supporting cast that can possibly win the East. I don't think this amalgamation of the Cavaliers is going to match up well with whatever comes out of the West, whether it be Houston
but they can still win the East.
Or Golden State. But they, of course, can win the East.
So, like, what does Hood and Clarkson do? Like, what's their starting five? What's their crunch time five?
I mean, it all depends on what they want to do with Kevin Love.
When's he back?
So Kevin Love should be back 4 to 6 weeks at this point. He'll be back before the playoffs. He'll probably play 5 or 6 or 7 games before the playoffs start. Love was playing the 5. Love is not a 5 defensively. He's a great stretch 5.
Can LeBron play the 5?
LeBron can play anywhere he wants. If they want to move Love back to the 4 and start Tristan Thompson, or possibly even start Larry Nance Jr., that's an option. I think that Nance and Tristan can make up somewhat for Love's defensive inefficiencies at the rim at the very least. They're much better rim protectors than Kevin Love, and LeBron's a good rim protector in his own right. I think they probably end up starting George Hill. George Hill's kind of a weird guy. He went off to Sacramento, and I think people assume he's aged like 7 years. Like, George Hill's still a very valuable player.
But you pay him $80 million a year, and you're doing fine,
This is the thing. It's just George Hill is now attached to a 3-year, $65 million contract, which means George Hill is a bad contract. Still a good player, though.
Okay, so is this
So if you're willing to pay the luxury tax, it's fine.
Is this trade just for this year?
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, you threw an interesting theory to me with LeBron and the Lakers and what this does for them now.
Yeah.
Now that they got rid of Clarkson's contract,
they have room for 2 maxes.
They can now afford 2 max of Paul George and LeBron?
That would be the prevailing theory. And I think the theory would be that Paul George would probably have to commit first for them to get LeBron. LeBron's not going to L.A. I mean, he's got a gravitational pull, but I feel like Paul would have to go there first for LeBron to want to go there because, you know, Houston's going to try. There's a ton of teams who are going to try and get LeBron James services this offseason. But yeah, I think this was the Cavs realizing, and it wasn't that bad. They kind of just dipped a toe in the water, but they kept most of their body out of the pool. Like, they kept the Brooklyn pick. That was what they had to do because LeBron's not coming back, and he wouldn't agree to tell them today that he was going to come back, which is the only way they would have traded that Brooklyn pick. So now they get to keep that. Right now, Brooklyn, I believe, is only 1 game out of picking first. Like, there's 7 or 8 teams.
For the most lottery balls.
Yes, for the highest probability of picking first. I mean, this is the last year that truly tanking is on the board. So these picks are extremely valuable. And I think I could be wrong on this, but 7 or 8 teams right now who have somewhere between 17 to 18 wins. So it's really up in the air for where these picks are going to land. So that Brooklyn pick could be extremely important to their future.
What they should have done was trade with Brooklyn and make their team worse somehow.
Maybe. Maybe. I mean, it's strange. The fantasy ramifications of all this are nutty because...
Well, I mean, like, does George Hill get a bump?
Yeah, George Hill probably gets a bump just because...
Like, was he playing a ton in Sacramento?
So he was sporadically taking nights off in Sacramento. And I think that George Hill in Sacramento... Dave Yeager came out a couple weeks ago and said, look, we're going to rest like 2 of our veterans every night because who the hell cares? We're Sacramento. Now he's going to have a purpose on this team. He's going to be playing. He's probably going to be starting next to LeBron. And George Hill, to his credit, I mean, it's not a huge volume size this season. And, you know, if you do play in the new NBA approved scoring settings, like 3-pointers made isn't a category anymore. But if you're still playing basic 9-cat, George Hill actually leads the NBA in 3-point shooting percentage this season. He's only taken 3 shots per game from beyond the arc.
Well, how does that translate out now that he's probably going to take like 7?
That's going to be great. He's a good shooter. Like, George Hill is a valuable player. George Hill, you know, you go to Sacramento and you're playing for one of the worst defensive rated teams in the association. You get this, like, all of a sudden George Hill's a bad defensive player.
Is Cleveland that much better?
No, Cleveland's terrible. Those are 2 teams fighting it out.
But you lose Isaiah, you bring in George Hill, makes you better.
George Hill was a very valuable piece in terms of, like, perimeter defense for very good defensive teams in the past. I mean, San Antonio, the Pacers. George Hill's been, like, a really good cog. Utah's been a great defensive team when he was there as well. I think that George Hill's super important. I like Rodney Hood a lot. Rodney Hood was someone who was kind of expected to fill the Gordon Hayward hole in Utah's offense this season. Didn't do that because right out of the gate he got hurt, and that's the knock on Rodney Hood is this guy gets hurt all the time.
But he's only going to be a bench guy for them, right?
No, I think he's probably going to be their starting shooting guard.
Then what's Clarkson do here?
Clarkson's the 6th man.
Okay.
I mean,
like minutes-wise, what are we looking at, do you think? From, like, Hill, 35 a night, 30 a night?
I don't think he can handle 35. I think he's probably playing like 28 to 32 a night.
So all 3 of them.
But if he plays every game, he's infinitely more valuable than he was before because you didn't know when he was playing. De'Aaron Fox was out there in Sacramento. They don't have to deal with this stuff now. Like, Jose Calderon's not stealing minutes at the backup point guard. LeBron will just play backup point guard. Clarkson can play backup point guard. Like, you know, not that Derrick Rose was pounding down the door or anything like that, but, you know, he's out of there too. He's probably going to sign with Minnesota or something stupid like that. But there's nothing there. There's no reason George Hill shouldn't be playing a bulk of these minutes. Hood and Clarkson will split some. You could have Hood and Clarkson on the court simultaneously because, again, Clarkson can play point guard. He was the backup point guard when Lonzo's been out a lot this season in LA. So it's just different looks. But you still have, like, J.R. Smith. You still have Kyle Korver. These guys are going to need minutes. And that's where I think it's kind of interesting because you can go small with this team and play LeBron at the power forward and have, like, George Hill, Kyle Korver, Rodney Hood, LeBron, Love. And you've got so much more shooting with that 5-man unit than you had with whatever the hell they were running out the last couple weeks. And again, the liability of Isaiah Thomas on defense was just, like, he was getting subbed out last night for, like, Cedi Osman, who...
Donnie Osman's brother?
Donnie Osman's brother,
Probably
exactly.
Traded to Utah, I'm guessing.
No, LeBron loves him. So,
but I mean, send him back with the rest of the Osmonds.
But, like, Isaiah Thomas, who was, like, All-NBA 2 seasons ago, or I guess last season, but he was being subbed out offense-defense in a tied game in overtime. Like, it was nuts how far he's fallen in terms of stock. And, yeah.
So is it a good buy low for the Lakers?
I think that...
Or is he just not back from the injury?
We've already got conflicting reports about what's going on with Isaiah Thomas. He looked really good in that Minnesota game on offense, which is what we care about in fantasy, obviously. But his agent came out and said Isaiah's going to start. Like, Isaiah's going to Los Angeles, and we will accept nothing less than him in the starting lineup.
I'm sure. Oh, this is going to be fantastic. Isaiah, who's just outspoken as it is, taking on LeVar Ball. Although, is LeVar coaching that Lithuanian team?
He's not coaching it, but he is splitting his time between Lithuania and America now.
You can, like, Skype in to yell at people, I think.
It's going to be good. As I said before, I'm glad some of these trades happened because if there's been 2 franchises underserved by media attention this season, it's been the Cavaliers and the Lakers. So.
Are you pro-LeVar or anti-LeVar? Because I'm very pro-LeVar. He just saw Trump's playbook and was like, I'm doing that too.
This is the thing, and I'll say this. I am anti-LeVar in terms of being a sports fan and wanting to see authentic sports journalism and things covered.
No one cares about that.
Well, I do.
Do you know what real sports journalism is now? Fake news.
I know. I respect LeVar, though, because he is a genius.
He's doing it.
Yeah, I can't knock anyone for getting to the point he's gotten to with essentially no talent. Like, he had sex a couple times. That led to some kids. And now he's one of the most famous people in the United States. So good for LeVar Ball. I can't knock the man. I could use a little less LeVar in my life, though.
Cavs in the East, in terms of standings, would they be the... I saw their odds drop. They were 10-1 to win the championship. Now they're 12-1 to win the championship after all these deals. But, like, are they the favorite in the East? Right. By the time the playoffs actually come around? Like, if you put Toronto up against Cleveland or Boston up against Cleveland right now, does Cleveland still win those series because they have LeBron?
It's hard to say. I would say right now, knowing that we know absolutely nothing about the rotations, about the cohesiveness of what's going on in Cleveland, just having LeBron is probably enough for me to give them the edge. I would say that as I think they were 7-13 or 6-13 across their last 19 games, as that was transpiring, I was talking myself into Boston or Toronto being able to beat this team. But now I think they've improved. I like some of their players. If Hill and Hood can stay healthy, LeBron is just the X factor that, like, Boston at least has Kyrie, where Kyrie can kind of take the game into his own hands. And if Boston really, really needs a basket, they can turn to him. But the fact of the matter is with Boston, they suck offensively. They are so bad when Kyrie's not on the court. I looked into this a couple weeks ago when Kyrie missed a Thursday night game, and they only scored 80 points with him not in the lineup. They have what would be compared to, like, the overall league standings, like the worst offensive rating as a team when Kyrie's not on the court. And even when he is on the court, like, they're still an above-average offensive team, but it's not like they're top 5. So they're really flawed in that aspect. Great defensive team. They'll really slow down the pace.
That'll help you out.
And the Raptors, I mean, I'm super biased. I can't really give a...
It seems like they're a different team this year.
They are. And this is the one thing I'll
say
about the Raptors.
So they might lose to the Cavs in 6 games in the playoffs. Instead of getting swept. That's nice.
It's very lazy when people just say, Toronto's Toronto, they'll lose to Cleveland. That's not true. Toronto's pace is a lot faster than last season.
They shoot
a
threes
lot more
now.
Threes this year. They've really bought into the sabermetric thing.
Is Dwayne Casey, like, actually a good coach?
He's a good coach.
After years being like, Dwayne Casey's terrible.
Well, the thing is, Dwayne Casey...
They succeed in spite of him, but now all of a sudden, like, Dwayne Casey's like, hey, Dwayne Casey's all right.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what your sort of, like, definition of a good coach is, because he's not the one drawing up the offensive plays. He just had the wherewithal to go, hey, Nick Nurse, we need to create an offense here that's actually... relevant in 2018. So he was smart enough to do that, and he's got good assistants.
Hey, that's what you do when you're the head coach. Look at these football coaches. Not all of them are the best X's and O's guys.
Exactly, and he's a defensive-minded coach. He's got a top 5 defense by defensive rating. So the Raptors right now are the only team in the NBA with a top 5 offensive and defensive rating.
Oh, then they're definitely going to win the championship then. Obviously.
I'm not
Golden
saying
State,
they are.
Step aside,
I'm
Golden
just
State.
saying they're
Houston,
different.
Please. Toronto is where it's at.
I came into this saying I could not give an unbiased opinion. I still can't. I will say they clubbed the Celtics a couple nights ago. Felt great.
Is that all you're looking for as a Raptors fan? Play the Celtics in the semis? Actually, that probably won't even happen.
I think most Raptors fans would admit that Cleveland is your championship. If you can make the finals, that's your final.
That's so sad. I think you're right, but it's sad.
But I think the NBA in general, I think if you're an NBA fan nowadays, you have to kind of realize that the NBA, unlike any other sport, like I've said in passing the past couple weeks, that if the Raptors were an NHL team, they'd have won a title by now. Just being that good and being in an NHL setting.
And like everything would break your way.
Yeah,
you
one
get
of
the
these years
goalie.
something breaks your way.
Yeah.
In basketball, that shit doesn't matter. You have to be the best team. So we know who the best team is, we know who the second best team is, and whoever wins Houston, Golden State, they're gonna win the title.
So, for Coach of the Year stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
Dwayne Casey's probably gonna get a lot of buzz, and there's gonna be
Stevens will probably.
Well, that's what I want to ask you, because involved in these trades over the past few days, Avery Bradley already got traded, Jay Crowder got traded,
I know, they're all
and
bad as
Isaiah
soon as they
Thomas
leave. I know.
got traded. So is the move just like, don't make trades with the Celtics because these guys aren't actually any good, but Brad Stevens can coach them up?
I feel like the Celtics and the Spurs often get compared to each other, and this is one of the things that happens in those comparisons is you go, okay, let's name a Spur that left San Antonio and got better. And they don't really, like, not a lot of people leave San Antonio, to be fair, but...
Steven Jackson?
Yeah, sure.
15 years ago?
I mean, Jackson kind of came there late
George
in his
Hill?
career. Look, George Hill is a good example. I mean, even someone like Corey Joseph got better after he left San Antonio, but we're talking like really young guys who might not have been as involved in the game plan in San Antonio as they were elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, Jay Crowder looks awful. Avery Bradley, I think, was kind of in a bad situation. Like it's hard to hang your hat. If the best thing you can offer an NBA team is defense, and you have to play defense next to like Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith, and have to make up for their like just terribleness all the time, it really affects your defensive numbers.
But is his defensive prowess overrated? Because he played for the Celtics.
It was overrated.
And now he's underrated?
But this is the problem. We don't really have good metrics in the NBA for defense because it's such a
fluid thing.
Boy,
it's just like when you talk about like DVOA in terms of football defense.
Yeah,
that like you're measuring 11 guys running one direction, doing 11 separate things, going up against 11 people doing 11 separate things.
It has to matter what the other 11 people are doing.
Yeah.
And basketball specifically, like I mentioned George Hill. Like, is George Hill a good defensive point guard? I think he is. Or did he just play for the Pacers, who had Paul George and Roy Hibbert?
And
the
Frank
Jazz,
Vogel, who wanted to coach defense.
I love Frank Vogel. He's dead now, but like, good for Frank
Hey,
Vogel.
the internet loves Frank. He's an internet Hall of Famer.
Well, he's like hungover crusty at this point. He's growing like a real scruff beard out in Orlando. Like, he's just given up entirely.
What was the name? Krusty's fake name.
Oh.
When he had the boat?
Yeah.
I don't need teachers driving around in Porsches.
I can't remember.
I forget. See, we're getting old. This is what happens when you get old. It happened to me far sooner than it happened to you. But now that you're aging, now that you're hitting your mid-20s, your memory's going.
It's all losing it.
Dwayne Wade, any fantasy viability with the Heat?
I mean, Wade might get like
better DraftKings play than season-long play?
I would say
on nights that he's playing?
Depending on the matchup. I mean, the Heat run just the slowest offense in the league, too. So they're never a team that I'm always like, oh, yeah, we got to get them in DraftKings lineups. I mean, they've had so many injuries that they often have the value plays, but very slow pace. I could see Wade getting, like, kind of a celebratory start, but getting the hook at, like, 6 minutes, maybe playing, like, 20, 24 minutes.
Okay.
Like, the Heat are a good team. They're a deep team.
Crowder and Derrick Rose on the Jazz?
So Rose will be bought out.
And go back to the Cavs?
Yeah. Well, he's not going to go back to the Cavs. No, he's going to go to Minnesota.
Oh.
Tibbs apparently wants him back. I don't know.
Okay.
But even then, like, that's Jeff Teague's job to lose. Tibbs plays the crap out of his starters. I can't see there being a huge role for Derrick Rose in this offense. Jay Crowder.
I
don't know. Like, if you play in a 9
Joe Johnson on the Kings?
Well, so Johnson will also get bought out. Johnson's just not playing enough. Like, he's been sporadically injured this season. He's actually only shooting like 27% from 3, which is very un-Joe Johnson. Like, I think that's a small sample size, rocky season sort of thing.
He'll have a relevant moment in the playoffs.
Oh, he will.
You watch.
He's probably, like I said, going to sign with Boston.
Boston can't sign everyone. They signed Greg Monroe today. Where do they have all this money? I know the Hayward exception is a thing.
They're just, again, it's kind of the Cavs effect from the last couple of seasons. It's, do you want to sign with Boston for half a year for maybe the mid-level exception, maybe less, maybe even the veterans minimum, just to go play for a championship team? You already just got bought out. Like, you're fine.
How about Shump Daddy with Sacramento? No? Channing Frye with the Lakers? Buyout candidate?
No. I think he'll stick around, but he'll get minutes. He might get more consistent minutes in LA than he was in Cleveland, but I don't see that being fantasy relevant at all.
All right. Alfred Payton to the Suns.
This one's interesting. I think they're going to want to play him a lot because he's coming into the end of his rookie contract. They're going to have to decide if they want to, offer him a deal.
Isn't this exactly what they did with Brandon Knight?
Yeah. I mean, they love point guards. I don't know. It's just, this is an audition. The only reason you make this move, aside from the fact that Orlando clearly was just playing with a sunk cost at this point. Like, you look at this deal on the surface, the fact they got Alfred Payton for a second-round pick seems laughable. But Orlando knew they were not going to offer this guy a contract, so let's just get something for him while we can. So that was a reason to make the move, just because he was so just incredibly cheap. But they're going to have to play him to see if he's good and if they like him. So I think there is a chance here. And unlike Miami and Utah, which just run anemic offenses, Phoenix will run it. They'll try. They'll try to get up 110 shots a game. Whether or not those are quality shots is an entirely different conversation. But, they lost by 48 points last night, so.
All right,
can only go up from there.
Three-way deal: Moutier to the Knicks, Devin Harris to the Nugs, and then Dougie McBuckets to the Mavs.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Moutier.
Moutier probably gets,
maybe,
if you need assists. Is he even owned anymore?
No. At the start of the season, it was a little back. He was actually out playing Jamal Murray for a bit.
As someone who took Emmanuel Moutier in my rookie draft in legal leagues 2 years ago, I was like, hey, here we go.
Yeah. That dried up fast.
Yeah,
Jamal Murray's
big shocker.
Crazy good for the past 6 weeks. This trade makes a lot of sense. Same basic principle as the Elf Payton deal. This is just, let's get this guy in the cheap.
Yo.
We aren't going to offer this guy a contract next season. Let's just get whatever we can for him. The Knicks, it's just about what the Knicks are actually going to do for the rest of 2018. I think, like I said, this is the last year you can actually tank. They're going to change.
Well, without Porzingis, they're going to have to.
And that's the thing. So they are incentivized to tank this season. They don't have Porzingis. I doubt at a certain point they're going to want to run Jarrett Jack out there for 25 minutes a night.
Jarrett Jack still plays in the NBA.
Oh, he's starting for the Knicks.
Good.
Yeah.
I just envision him being on the Nets for some reason.
It's a fair place to envision him, honestly.
He seems like too much of a grinder to be on the Knicks.
Yeah.
Because there was always a point in every fantasy season, like, I mean, at this point, I'm going to want to say like 15 years ago, 10 years.
Probably 10.
10 years ago with Jarrett Jack.
With like Portland Jarrett Jack?
He did it for the Raptors, too,
Yeah.
at one point. Like, he was just the backup. He was the third guard on everyone's team. And then one of the starters would get hurt. Jarrett Jack would come in and just start firing up shots.
He's the backup quarterback who inevitably signs in a situation where it's like, someone's got to start.
He's the Josh McCown of the NBA.
There you go. He's the Josh McCown of the NBA.
And if you're starting him, you're not doing great.
No. So I think with a guy like Moutier, I think they'll be more willing to give, Frank Ntilikina the minutes, because he's their own personal draft pick. But they've been very protective of him this season. They're not playing him a ton of minutes.
Are they just piling up euros?
Seems like it.
So many euros. They're turning into the Raptors from 15 years ago.
They got rid of Willy Hernan Gomez.
Yeah, but they can probably sign like Jorge, what the hell is his name? Garbajosa. Get him back.
I think he's dead too.
I think he's like 55 years old at this point.
He's not 55. He's probably like 45.
Remember when his leg shattered in all those pieces?
Yeah. It was against Boston.
Dante Cunningham to the Nets. Nothing?
Nothing.
I don't even know who Rashad Vaughn
is.
Rashad
Vaughn! That happened a couple days ago, yeah.
And he went to the Pelicans. Blazers get under the luxury tax. That's always fun when the headline for the deal is no one involved in the deal.
Well, the Raptors made one of those too today. They got rid of Bruno Caboclo, and it was like, they're basically just getting...
You know what? Bruno is the next Kevin Durant. So
Brazilian Kevin Durant.
Brazilian Kevin Durant. He's...
Oh, I remember.
What is this, like year 8 now of Bruno?
No. He's months away.
Oh, he's months away now.
He was 2 years away from being 2 years away, which means he is months away. He's almost got.
Well, this is a great deal for the Kings, although it says he's going to be released by
Sacramento. He will be released. Probably go into the G League player pool.
Sweet. Maybe he can go to my hometown team, the Halifax Rainmen, playing the Canadian Basketball League.
Maybe.
Dub's dad owns the team.
Does he actually?
Yeah, he does.
Wow.
He bought the team.
So, does he pay the players out of pocket? How does that work?
I guess so. I don't know.
I wonder how much you make for playing in the Canadian League.
I don't know. Is there any other deal that you can think of? Jameer Nelson to the Pistons, he going to play?
No. I mean, this was expected to be a very boring deadline, and then Cleveland decided they just were going to turn over their roster entirely, which is something we don't see very often. So, any big volatile situations...
Well, I feel like the Blake Griffin deal was the deal.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, but did Blake's value change all that much? Not really.
But what about Tobias Harris? Did it improve?
Not really.
No. What about Boban?
Boban's did. Boban was probably the big fantasy winner in that whole affair. Tyrone Wallace, the loser in that affair.
All right, so it's going to be Golden State and Houston in the West.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who can mount a charge? Because it seems like the internet really wants the Thunder to be the next team. They just haven't put it together yet. Are they going to put it together?
They play Golden State well. They're 2-0 against them so far this season. I think there's a certain...
in the playoffs.
Yeah. There's a certain athleticism that Russell Westbrook presents that I don't think Steph Curry matches up well against. Yeah, but at the same time...
but can he play golf like Steph Curry? No. Is he getting web.com invites like Steph Curry? And Tony Romo now?
Is that web.com or is that a...
No, Tony Romo's going to a PGA one, but it's happening opposite a WGC.
Right.
So all the good players are going to be playing in one tournament.
So it's essentially a web.com. Yeah. Okay. But I wanted to clarify that because I was excited for Hunky Tone.
Hunky Tone!
Yeah, I mean, I think the East will be decided by really how the standings shake out.
So who is it left in the East? You got the Celtics, Raptors, and Cavs. Are the Wizards viable whatsoever?
I mean,
when Wall comes back, is he going to be any good?
It depends what version of John Wall comes back. I mean, he wasn't
What if it's the one who does Douglas?
Well. That's a good version.
Are the Bucks gonna do it?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Bucks are extremely talented. The Wizards are actually talented. They just have very little depth on their team, and they actually were trying to get Tyreek Evans, which would have been a very big piece for them.
So Evans didn't move. No. DeAndre Jordan doesn't move. Is there anyone else big that was supposed to move that didn't move?
Those were the two big ones that everyone figured.
Kemba Walker didn't get traded.
Kemba seemed like it was just Charlotte putting him out there to see what they could possibly get. I don't think he was ever actually
nothing.
No, he could. Kemba's a super, super cheap contract. Like, he is exceedingly valuable because of that contract. Right now.
How much longer is his contract, though?
I believe it's another, I think it's this year and then the year after that. But he's only getting $12 million next season, which for a player...
That's half George Hill money.
Yeah, which is crazy for a guy like Kemba Walker. So no one really huge got traded. I think the East at this point, I think the big thing is seeing who gets the 1 seed between Toronto and Boston, because I do think this version of Cleveland, they were starting to kind of slip down the standings, and they're actually closer to the 9 seed right now than they are to the 2nd seed. But I think they're going to lock up the 3 spot, which means if you're Boston or Toronto, you want to avoid the 2 seed because you want to have
those teams play
each other on the hope that that team can knock out Cleveland, and then you can knock out whatever's left of that team. So
the Wizards and Bucks have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I mean...
As do the Sixers, obviously.
And here's the thing. I'm not a big, like, old-school basketball theories guy. I like my actual stats. But at the same time, I do subscribe slightly to the theory that when you go into a playoff series, do you have the best player on the court at any given time?
So the Cavs win.
So the Cavs always win, but after that, Milwaukee wins every time. Giannis is better than anyone else in the Eastern Conference by a wide margin. So the Bucks have a shot.
Then what about Kyrie?
Kyrie's fine, but Kyrie's been better on defense this season, but Giannis changes the game in every facet. Giannis is someone who is currently inhabiting an environment where people will kill you. They will tar and feather you on the internet if you don't shoot 3-pointers. He's only made 4 this season, and everyone still loves him because he's just a freak. It's insane what Giannis can do. So I think that 1-4 matchup, whether it be Toronto, Milwaukee, Toronto, Washington.
You're penciling in Toronto as the 1 seed, I see.
I think Toronto takes the 1 seed. I really do. I think they're better than Boston. I think they've got a lot easier schedule than Boston, too. And that's really just how this breaks down. Toronto doesn't have to play a Western Conference team on the road the rest of the season.
I feel like they did well against the West on the road.
They did, but they played a ton of road games off the hop. They've got... Boston has 2 games in hand, and they're both wins. So that's a positive. But I just think Boston's schedule gets to a place where...
How many games do they have left head-to-head?
2.
2?
But I believe they're both the last week of the season.
Oh, that could be fun.
It could be fun, or it could mean absolutely nothing.
I suppose so.
But yeah, I think that Boston-Cleveland would be interesting in the second round.
All right.
I just want to see what Cleveland is.
Garion Thorne. Check him out on Twitter at Garion Thorne.
That's accurate.
That is going to be your handle. At Garion Thorne.
Not even will be.
Basketball, baseball, football, everything you need broken down. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter. Stick around for the weekend because we're going to be talking some fantasy baseball rankings as well, plus catch up on everything on the DraftKings YouTube channel and the Pat Mayo Experience podcast feeds, wherever they may be. They're everywhere. It doesn't matter which podcast subscription site you have. The Pat Mayo Experience is free and always on demand. And there's a lot of backup content that you can go to. Very evergreen stuff. You can check out the Custies, which Garion was on with Cuss. Cuss was on talking about the Olympics, so you probably want to get to that before it gets way too into it. Spoiler alert, he loves cross-country skiing, which should come as no surprise. He also loves Judge Judy, as we found out too. I think she's real hot. But anyway, that's me. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.